teapot today. Now then, what's to be scared about that? It's a teapot. It's shiny. Yes, chrome. How on earth do you paint chrome?
And a reflection in it.
Yeah. Well, there are lots of reflections in there. And also, it's not obeying the rules of light and shade, is it? You know, the light. Well, you can't tell where the light's coming from because it's a reflective surface. So, what can you do other than just observe what's going on? You can see the reflections are. You get dark bits next to light bits. You don't get that gradual roll off of light to dark that you would expect to see in a non-reflective object. Which will be describing its shape and form. We are going to have to rely on different things to describe this shape, like the ellipse. Ellipse is a circle lying on its side. A little bit of perspective going down because we're looking down on it. Otherwise, well, let's just see what happens, shall we? Let's have a look and see where we get to. Right. I'm going to mute you all as usual. There you go. You gone? It's just me. Now, just give me a minute to let's go up and away. Give myself a bit more room. Grab a pencil and let's see what we've got. We've got quite a straightforward shape to draw because it's just a cylinder. So when I'm drawing something like this, it's probably not a bad idea just to start with the center line, just to get everything equal on either side, just to get it symmetrical. So this is what kind of scrappy mood I'm in today. Look at that for my center line. There's about 8 of them there. I only need 1, but I'm just kind of nice and loose. And let's start off by just getting those ellipses in. That's the big lid, big old lid like that. And remember, ellipses don't have sharp edges. They don't come to a point. They go round. They're flattened circles. So they go round. Got a big ellipse for the lid, a little ellipse for the handle. 2 sides. And an ellipse for the bottom as well. Although you can't see it going around the back, it's still an ellipse. So now look, it's looking less scary already, isn't it? And that is pretty much it. This ellipse has got depth. We'll come to that in a minute. We've got a handle doing this. And we've got a spout doing this. It kind of comes around from the back, and fixes onto the front like that. Interesting. So now we've kind of got all we need to start finessing it. Everything's in the right place. That's not difficult, is it? And that's just being nice and loose and sketchy. So now we can start to just refine our edges. So this is not an organic shape. This is a man-made object. So we're looking at straight lines and clean, crisp edges, I suppose. We often do leaves and animals and crinkly natural stuff, but this is man-made. So let's keep these lines straight and clinical. We don't do straight and clinical very often, but in this case we'll try. We've got this handle, there's a little bit of overlap going on here. You can see how that side of the handle goes behind there. So that helps us to understand what we're looking at. That back edge disappears behind this front edge. So we're making nice swoopy lines, nice and clean today. does that. I'm going to cover my drawing with a scrap of paper just to keep it clean. All right, let's have a look at this lid. I've got a little bit bumpy there. It's a much smoother thing than that. Actually, I'll start off with the handle. Because, again, a nice ellipse like so. It's got depth, this has, so we better put two sides on it. And the ellipse mirrors itself underneath like that. And it's on a little kind of triangular stand like that. Not scary at all. This ellipse here. Let's bring him in. Now, you see I did these sketchy lines here. There's a lot of incorrect line in here. So I'm taking it easy. And instead of just drawing one old definite line, I'm kind of just feeling my way until I feel as though I've got it in the right place. That's not bad. That could come up there a bit. Try and keep it symmetrical, you see. And instead of just making one bold commitment, I'm just working my way into it until I'm confident I've kind of got it right. And I'm happy with that. Right, continuing to just refine here and here. Nice little confident, straight. Straight lines. It's quite nice. This is almost like a technical drawing. TD, as we boys used to call it, while the girls are doing cookery. I'd have done cookery actually. It's far more useful than technical drawing. There. That's got a kind of a flange in there that comes down like that. That's just a little secondary line. Tiny little spout on there. That's nice. Let's get that in. And again, a good straight, confident, sweepy line. Like that. Nice sweepy lines. And then again, for the bottom of the teapot, it's not pot, is it? It's chrome, it's metal, but it's not. That's not bad. Trying to keep all my lines nice and smooth. Because like I say, it's a man-made object. Should I put this little thing on here? A little lid flipper. All right. Look at that. This is not like what we usually do. This is very clinical and neat. We'll soon put a stop to that as we get the paints out. So yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. Let's see what we can do with some paint. Now, chrome. How do you paint chrome? I have no idea. Let's see what happens. Clean-ish water. Metal. You think of metal and you kind of think blue, don't you? You kind of think, it's cold, it's shiny, it's reflective. So let's start off. I know we've got a blue tablecloth here, and I know it's reflecting into here. But metal is kind of blue, you know, you always think blue steel, don't you? So I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. So all I'm bringing to the table today is the notion that we're not worried about light and shade creating highlight and shadow. We are more concerned about the nature of chrome and how it reflects and how dark sits next to light. And there's always a very, very specular highlight somewhere in there. Look, we've got highlights here, highlights here. We should maybe make a little note of those before we crack on. And it's very reflective. So yeah, we need to get this lid kind of reflecting in there. This has gone a little bit out of proportion, but it doesn't matter. Now look at these highlights. There are portions of this painting that we must leave white. For example, here, big highlight on there, highlight on there, highlight there, highlight there. Highlight, obviously the light is hitting it bang on because these highlights are central. So we need a highlight here, and we can need a big old highlight on that shoulder. And then you've got, it's not a bright white, but you've still got a high reflection coming down there as well. And secondary highlights here, and little glints of light here and there. I imagine you could probably come back in and pick these out with a white gel pen or some white paint. But yeah, we've got highlights to try and retain there. We've got to keep the shine. We've got to keep the shine. But to start off with, let's get some blue in because blue is cool and metallic. So, do you know what? I'm going to do this quick and I'm going to do this spontaneously because watercolor really likes it when you're brisk and fearless. So let's have a go. Bearing in mind, I am keeping these highlights white. So let's start. Let's start down the bottom. Let's get some color in. I know this is going to be really brisk as well. I want to keep this moving and keep it alive. But I want to remember not to paint my highlights. That's a color cropper, and it won't look metallic. So you know that's kind of. Look how quickly I'm doing this, really, really quickly. Right, I want to neutralize that blue. So I'm going to maybe try a bit of that, a bit of brown. Brown, the opposite of blue is orange. Now brown is a nice murky orange. Let's see what happens when we start to put in some brown. Keeping my highlights untouched. And of course, it's really all it's doing is just reflecting. It's reflecting the room, isn't it? It's reflecting its environment. There's everything's. I suppose it's because it's this vertical reflective cylinder. You get a lot of these vertical striations in it. So let's try and start to introduce that. And also you get, as I was saying, you get very, very dark next to very, very light. So that, it's got a bit of shine to it already. I'm now going to try and mix up a really, really, really dark mix of, well, the best way to do a good dark is to get your viridian green and a really deep red. So look here, let me show you my little color swatch. I get a very dark green and a very dark red, even those two maybe even, and make a good strong mix to try and get this as dark as I possibly can. This isn't a viridian green, this is a mossy green. So get a nice old gloopy mix of that. You can't really see that because it's shining, isn't it? Nice mossy green there. Wash that brush, dry it off. Because I want to get it strong. This wants to be a strong mix. Maybe this deep red. That's what we're doing. That's already starting to look, actually that looks brown. So that means it's not green enough. Let's get a bit more of that in. That's looking nice and neutral. And let's just see. Let's just get inside the snout. Is a very dark place. But what I really want to do with this is introduce some nice vertical and dark striations. It's a good word, isn't it? Ooh. See, that's starting to look a bit, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit chromy. Let's get some darkness in here. My lid's dark. And then there are, and you get wavy lines as well, don't you, in chrome? So I'm going straight into my paint here to get some nice gloopy darks. Okay. Yeah, there are occasionally softer edged areas as well. So, oops, wrong red. See that I've got in the wrong color there, but let's see what happens. Doesn't matter. I'm just putting, because, you know, I'm reflecting the environment. There are all kinds of colors coming in from the environment. So let's run with it. Let's run with it. That's actually quite nice, that little splash of orange. We've got, round the rim of this hand is like a mini version of what's going on here in terms of reflection. So let's do a few of those in there. Got a bit of that. You know, I mean, if you wanted to absolutely nail this, you could copy it, just be meticulously careful and copy what you see. And you can't go wrong if you do that. You'll end up with a rather possibly photographic, sterile painting, but you'll definitely get something that looks exactly what your subject looks like, obviously. But that kind of takes the fun out of it a little bit. It's much nicer to, for example, here, this is, I like this because it kind of looks, it looks like a painting. And that really, for me, is what it's all about. And I need to hide that bit. So as you see, I'm just allowing the paint to do the work, for better or worse. And I'm just picking out interesting elements. Now, let's have a look. My lid looks a bit black. My lid looks a little bit dark there. So I've just, with a clean brush, just dabbed that off. And I'm just going to, let's lift a bit of that out, just to bring it back. Does this look a bit scrappy? Bit. Well, lost a little highlight there. Failed to spot that in time. See if I can lift out some paint there just to bring it back. See, just pulling that out there. Does that kind of suggest a shiny curve? I don't know. Do you know, it's a bit bonkers this, but it's kind of nice. I might be tempted to just, I've got a big block of white down there, which isn't what I've got here. I've got a very highlight there. I'm just going to maybe just soften that a bit, like that. Just take the sting out of it. All right. So I'm quite happy with that. I think what I'll do now is, and also, you know, talking about letting the paint have its fun, look at all this lovely stuff in here. That's going to dry beautifully. And here, when you watercolor such a lovely medium on its own, sometimes it's just nice to let it do its thing. Well, there we go. All right, we have a teapot floating in space. Let's put in a little bit of its environment. Just having a look down here, I'm wondering if we can go a little bit blue and a little bit darker down the bottom. Let's just see what happens if, just to suggest a bit of a curve down there. That's nice, actually, isn't it? And I'm going to run with this blue because, oh, that's really nice. Now, what should we do with this background? We can, I think it needs something, it's hovering in midair. We can take a pencil and we can start to draw in circles, or we can just, do you know what? Let's just block it in with a beautiful cerulean blue. So I'm going to clean up a little bit of space in my palette. And I'm going to make, we very rarely do solid washes of color in this class because we're very often too busy enjoying watching the paint ooze about and do its thing. But it might be nice to block in a bit of color here. So let me just show you what to do. Now, I'm making a decent puddle of blue. As you can see, I'm giving it a good scrub because I want to make a nice batch of liquid color. Should we try and get some spots in as well? Spotty tablecloth. We haven't got any spots in here, but it doesn't matter. Okay. Now that I just sat this on the corner of a box, so that angle there, it's actually quite nice. That, you know, is agreeable. I do a little kind of arrangement like so. Now, if you want to do a solid color, what you don't want to do is ever allow your leading edge to dry. And when I say leading edge, I mean the edge that I'm working away from the paint with. So soon as this paint starts to dry, it'll leave a permanent mark on the paper. But if I keep that edge moving, the leading edge will blend into the rest of it. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but just putting a few little dots of interest in here. Look. Now, schoolboy error, I'm going to run out of paint there very quickly. Didn't make enough paint, which means that while I'm mixing up more paint, these edges are going to start to dry. And they're going to cause me trouble because when they dry, they're going to be permanent. Look at that, running out now, about to run out, just taking it to the wire. So I want to try and keep these edges moving. Quickly make up a bit more. Hope that nobody noticed that mistake. And I can just about keep going. And I'm just I'm just leaving white dots here and there. And then let's take him up here. Let's pretend also that that background just corners up there like that. And then shoots down there like that. And that suggests a corner, doesn't it? Now, I'm softening off these edges because I don't, it's just a personal thing. I quite like my edges to disappear into nothingness, but that's that. Let's also, just underneath here gets cast a shadow. So I've gone a little bit darker, straight into my paint. I'm just going in with the darker blue, just to create a bit of shade under there. And that gets that teapot sitting firmly on the surface. I can leave that there. Do I need to put a background in? Who can say? I'm not sure that I do, you know. I might be tempted to just leave that like that. So now, let's have a look. I might, you know, if I put that shadow in there underneath that teapot, it goes around the back. There's a little bit of shade behind there. I think maybe if we did that with a stronger blue, that would just suggest that behind here is a darker place. Just ever so slightly. So now, what am I doing? I mean, you know, I was saying it's good to keep all these marks and your work spontaneous. You don't want to start fiddling. Sometimes it's kind of done. Sometimes it's just done and you should walk away. But now this is dry, I can start to add other, I can make it darker still. By glazing stuff on top, you know, I'm now coming in with, I've now got the opportunity to put in darker colors. Something funny going on down there, but we'll just do that. This is a bit scrappy. Look, that's a bit messy down the bottom of here. Let's tidy that up a bit. Just where that handle meets the kettle. And on the top here, this has got a bit vague. Again, it's a benefit from a few crisp, darker lines. Let's see what we can do. Because you can see here, look, crisp lines, crisp edges. And because I was painting wet in wet here, they don't exist, but now I can put them in. Very often, you know, reflections in here, they're wavy lines, aren't they? They're kind of a bit like this. Maybe around the lid, underneath the lid, there's a dark line. Let's see if we can get that in. This is a little bit of a delicate touch. Don't do this very often. That's quite nice, that little delicate line under there. That's certainly added something. Look at that, just a little streak down there. Hasn't that really made it more mirror-like? This is quite interesting, isn't it? You know, you get to this point where you can start to put crisper lines on drier lines, and it actually brings it to life. Those little straight lines that are hard-edged and crispy. Just a little hard line, hard line, hard line. I don't want to overdo this. I don't want to overdo it. But I am enjoying this effect that it's creating. That's confusing. Handles a little, oops. Handles still a little bit confusing. Let's just tidy that up a bit. Do you know, shall we put a background in? Oh, terrible. Let's make a nice neutral wash and see what happens, shall we? So now, yeah, let's just put a background. I can't resist it. Just looks a little bit empty. So I think a nice, something like this, kind of warm olive green. Do you know what? Naughty. I just love putting washes in. So come on, let's just put a nice neutral wash in here. And it'll also help to pick out the edge, I think. So I'm pre-wetting in here. Pre-wetting all the way around here. Let's see what happens. What should we do? What should we do? Should we go a bit of that? Ooh, that's a bit gingery, that is. I don't think that's quite right. No. Testing my colours. Brown. That's not right, is it? That's not right. We need to neutralise that. Let's get the old green in there. See, my logic here is by putting in a background that's going to kill the white and enhance the reflective nature of the teapot. That might work. I've got kind of olivey thing going on here. And so now I'm just going to pick out, because I've pre-wet this, I'm thinking now, if I just do a bit of this, look how that's just burst out into that wet zone. I'm going around here like this, and now you see. I just like watching it do this. And that does make the highlights ping a little bit, doesn't it? It's nice. Right. So where I do have a highlight down here, I'm just going down a bit more. There, I think I'm pretty done with this now, I think. Just might be tempted to just get a bit of an edge down there. This really does bring it to life. These dry, hard-edged lines just make it pop. Yeah, I think we're there, you know. Just thinking of putting, adding reflections, what you can see. Just little bits of detail that are mirrored in this, in here. Fiddling a bit now, but it's nice to fiddle. You're allowed to fiddle. Is that looking shiny? That looks, see, that bit's a bit flat. I don't know what you can do. Sometimes you can lift a bit of paint just by scrubbing and doing that. And look, that's just taking it back and just giving it a bit more interest. There might be other bits that are a bit flat. Maybe, there aren't actually that many bits that are a bit flat. But you can lift with your paintbrush. Anyway, do you know what? Let's have a quick look. Have a look what's going on here. It's a nice little study, that. It's nice and scrappy. Very interesting things going on down here. I think in terms of chrome and reflection, this looks nice. This is creating that illusion, isn't it? And in here, so yeah, wasn't as scary as we thought, was it, Mike? Right.
Well, I think it was at least as scary.
Nonsense.
Good fun nonetheless.
Good fun, you're absolutely right. Let me say bye to you all. It's been a pleasure as usual. And so, until the next time,
Thank you.
I'll see you around. Have a nice time. Bye, everybody.